A lot of priority in media is given to the quote-unquote best. The best music on the charts, the film with the most awards, TV shows with the best actors, hell, even TikTok teens with the most followers these days. These end up being the inspiration for the next generation of creators, looking to one-up these golden eggs of the industry with their own work. The quote-unquote best media is always treated differently, talked about differently, experienced differently, purely because enough people can look at it and go, yeah, I think that's pretty good. Is this a terrible, backwards system? Not really. I mean, you have to measure quality and enjoyment in some way, and it clearly must work somewhat for it to still be so important. But then there's some questions with that system, such as, what about anime? For a long time, this media was treated by most as different, strange, too nerdy to be considered equals with live-action television in terms of prowess and quality. Even though many incredible shows have been created over the past few decades, you had to really be in the know and looking out for these influential anime to find them. No random viewer could switch a channel over and start watching Neon Genesis Evangelion on their TV. It wasn't until more Western success in the form of popular kids shows or massive releases like the Ghibli films that you started to see anime become considered more than an underground fandom. Suddenly, it started to become cool. Today, anime is an international sensation, cemented in pop culture and global media and making money like a cash printer on steroids. I could just let this video be about the history of anime, but personally I always find myself faced with a tough question when thinking or talking about high-quality series like those I mentioned earlier. What is the most important anime? What is one of those golden eggs? A show that every fan should know is the OG, the champion of all things big-eyed and weirdly proportioned. And so in this video, I want to bring forward some ideas and thoughts, and hopefully promote a more focused discussion on potential answers to this question. And hey, if you don't like or watch any anime, that doesn't mean you can't watch this video. I mean, you might see some visuals or characters you've seen around and finally be able to place where they're from. Or maybe even get a bit more info to give the genre a go. So before I get into the meat of this discussion, there are some things to keep in mind and not shout at me for. First, like with all media, ratings and opinions are primarily subjective, and thus this video shouldn't be considered a study in quality or a review. This is about the shows that had a large-scale impact in some way on pop culture or the anime industry as a whole. Secondly, anime in Japan is a very, very different world compared to other countries and regions. Not to mention, many different countries and regions have been exposed to different shows over time. So to be fair, it should be noted this is a Western fan's overview at what could be considered the most influential series globally or generally, and is by no means an objective viewpoint. Third, in this video I'm looking at TV shows only. Film and manga are entirely different discussions and cultures, and while very important, they're not for this video, but maybe we'll make one on them in the future. And finally, I'm not an anime expert. I haven't been watching anime since I could see. Your knowledge is probably better than mine, and honestly I'm a casual fan at best. This is just more of a study and overview using online research, retrospect, and some collected info. I'm just interested in this stuff. I'm not the final say. So like I said before, don't treat any of this as gospel, just see it as thoughts and discussion, and it's totally open to your own input. Now, if we're going to attempt to figure this out in any way, we'd need some way to measure influence. A way to determine if a series could qualify as the most influential anime of all time. So I came up with 4 selected criteria to consider when analysing a series. I'm going to go through each one and list some shows which are strong examples and then summarise the best candidates in my opinion at the end. First criteria, impact. Now, this is quite a general term, so I'm going to be more specific. When I say impact, I'm more or less referring to the effect the show in question had soon after release. This could be online response, pop culture referencing, promotions outside Japan, industry changes, and so on. Basically, if a show is known for being different or bringing about a change in the genre, it would hit this criteria. Shows like Astro Boy and Speed Racer massively affected not only other Japanese shows in the 60s, but many international shows produced after as well. Other notable anime around this time include Gigantor, considered the first show of the mecha genre, and Sazae-san, a show we'll talk about more later on. Many of these shows were major successes. They featured unique storytelling, grittier themes, and a style of action not seen in animation at that time, influencing the entire animation industry for decades to come. Looking for shows with a more direct global impact, we find more modern contenders. During the anime boom of the 90s, sometimes referred to by fans as the golden age of anime, we saw some well-known shows debut and spread like wildfire around the West. These are the shows you've probably heard a bit more about. Worldwide sensations like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Pokemon all first aired in the mid-90s, but in that time we also saw some less mainstream classic fan favourites released. like Serial Experiments Lain, Slam Dunk, and Initial D. The captivating stories, unique ideas, and of course intense successes of these shows paved the way for the fresh big hits of the 21st century. For example, Gurren Lagann is notable for revitalizing the mecha genre with brilliant animation and writing, earning a rare Rotten Tomatoes rating of 100% as of the recording of this video, a clear 13 years after its release. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya first aired in 2006 and has become a modern anime fan staple, beginning an entire phenomenon of Japanese light novel adaptations and paving the way for more successes than I can feasibly list here. The isekai genre found more global success during this time as well, mainly due to potentially the most dividing anime of all time, Sword Art Online, which was, regardless of viewer opinion, inescapable for a brief time online. And as a final mention here, I think it's worth briefly discussing one show in particular, Attack on Titan. Intense story, new style, a plot that twists and turns the whole way through. Honestly, it's impossible to imagine this show failing when it aired in 2013. But the level of success and hype this show had online is on an entire other level, and I think anyone with any slight knowledge of anime has either watched or heard of this show. It just snowballed from there as well. It led to a hike in manga sales, a never-ending stream of merchandise, and a bottomless pit of online discussion. It really felt like Attack on Titan was this whole new world of anime when it came out. Not to mention it opened up a lot of Western fans to completely new show types and atmospheres not seen in many of the previously listed examples. Darker anime suddenly had this new potential audience. Despite this, the hype of the show inevitably died out a bit in the following years, and it's never reached the same peak, but it has a dedicated following. So could a show that only mattered to most people for a year or two like Attack on Titan, or a forgotten series from the 60s like Astro Boy really be considered the most influential series? Or does it need more staying power? Second criteria, longevity. While a show's immediate impact could be used as a way to measure importance, it could be argued that this is less because of the actual show itself, and more down to timing or the situation of its release. Therefore, we should also consider the lifespan and legacy of a show as well, how a series has continued to influence anime culture. Earlier I mentioned Sazae-san, an anime that premiered in the late 60s, and if we're measuring longevity, Sazae-san is absolutely the queen. As of the recording of this video, the show has over 7,000 episodes. It would take over 150 days to watch all of the series, and that makes it one of the longest running scripted TV series in history, and the single longest running animated show of all time. While this might not be some Dragon Ball style action-packed battle series, the influence Sazae-san has had on anime and Japan as a whole is completely undeniable. But you could argue that the most obvious pick for this category would be One Piece, a show notorious for how many episodes it has, at well over 900 episodes and 20 seasons. In Japan, One Piece has consistently been among the top 5 animated shows in television viewer ratings, and according to surveys in 2016, the show was the year's most popular anime and 14th most popular TV show worldwide. The show continues to pick up more and more steam, constantly gaining new fans all over the world and showing no signs of slowing down. Then there are other shows commonly known for their length. You've got Detective Conan, also known as Case Closed outside of Japan, and Doraemon, whose titular character was appointed Japan's anime ambassador in 2008, and is still considered the most beloved cartoon character in Japan, often being compared to what Mickey Mouse means to the West. There are some other shows with strong lengths, some of which have already been mentioned. You've got Dragon Ball at around 798 episodes, Pokemon at around 1,127 episodes, and some others which had mild success abroad, like Crayon Shin-chan, which has 1,049 episodes, and many different seasons and reimaginings of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which had 236 episodes alone in its original series, but hundreds and hundreds more in its many different forms. But more often than not, these shows aren't really held in high regard. They're more just known for being long or hard to get into. While it's important to consider the way a show can survive the changing public opinion of what's good or what's bad, and it could definitely be influential on pop culture, it doesn't always mean it's a standout show of its genre or medium. So we should also consider this next factor in a show's lifespan. Third criteria, fanbase. As the internet started to become a more fundamental part of daily life, the anime industry, like pretty much every industry, changed forever. Suddenly, you didn't need to live in Asia or have a bunch of nerdy friends who were also into anime to watch and discuss the latest episodes or shows. The anime fanbase rapidly grew, and it's become easier to see where the largest fanbases lie internationally thanks to sites like Twitter and Reddit. Most notable for fanbases here would be the infamous Big Three. 3 anime known for their wide-reaching fanbases, massive popularity, and ridiculous commercial success. These are One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. All of these shows are so big, it sometimes defies explanation. You got memes, fan content, and more pages of discussion than any human being should or ever could get through. This means a huge portion of newer anime fans find the community and anime as a whole through these shows, and thus it could be argued, at the very least in a statistical sense, that these are the most important shows of all time. I myself got into anime through Naruto, and I know that's not an unusual situation for a lot of Western fans. But just because these shows have the most fans or success doesn't mean they have the most vocal fans, which, with the way social media is now, could be argued the most notable aspect of a fanbase. I feel like the title of most vocal fanbase can only ever go to one group of fans. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a total anomaly of a series to me. It's one that survived being fairly unknown internationally for around 25 years before suddenly emerging now as this next big anime craze that everybody checks out. The series was first adapted for a limited TV show in 1993, but it wasn't until the show was fully adapted in 2012 that people outside of Japan really started to take notice of it. Even if you haven't heard of JoJo, I promise you, you have seen JoJo. The show's fans have taken the source material and turned it into some of the biggest memes of the 2010s, spreading all over Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, amassing incomprehensible view counts.
Oh shit, here we go again.
We could and very well might do an entire video on the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure craze and the influence it's had on pop culture, but for now just know that for the past few years, JoJo has been the internet champion. But before JoJo, the internet still had its favourite shows and memes as well, with most of this love coming in the form of early noteworthy fan content. Many people still get nostalgia for the classic shows like EVA Abridged by Gigguk and DBZ Abridged by Team 4-Star. These shows were a form of parody built around the pre-existing stories of a series, but they kinda became their own shows entirely once they gathered a strong enough following. But outside of that, you've got your fan art, your fanfics, your cosplay, so on and so forth. These are all usually focused on the same sort of shows. You've got the new modern hits, the classics like Sailor Moon and DBZ, or some of the big three that we mentioned before. But in between, you do see some particular standout shows that seem to gather their own devoted fan bases. Neon Genesis Evangelion is a great example. You've got the Fate franchise, got Love Live, K-On!, and there's one that I found through my research called Kantai Collection, which is known for its extensive library of fanfic online, which honestly is a show I've not heard of before, so I'm just gonna look into it. Hang on. So I got Wikipedia here and it says Kantai Collection is about World War II warships personified as teenage girls and young adult women with personality characteristics reflecting the history of each ship. How does this stuff still surprise me at this point, honestly? What is this? Anyways, there's one big final criteria to consider here, and I'm going to swiftly move away from Kantai Collection. Fourth criteria, response. At the end of the day, most people, when they want something new to watch, will judge a show first on its scores and reviews listed online. We all want instant gratification now. Why try shows and see how they are when you could just turn something on straight away and know it's good before you even have to watch or think about it? Anime is no exception. There are mountains of reviews online and even whole websites just dedicated to sharing opinions and watching histories. So when you total up public opinion online, what shows are viewers and fans saying are must-sees? What shows are they promoting as a representation of the peak quality that anime can achieve? So I used a decent amount of research to measure this, but my favorite source was actually this really easy to read list of the top 100 voted anime set up by popular YouTuber Joey the Anime Man and the online anime community. It's really well made, it's diverse, it features these fun little fan log lines. I'll link it below with Joey's video talking about it, and if you want to check it out before we spoil the top 10 here, you can go ahead. So in that list, the top 10 shows were the ones on screen now. I saw these same shows come up multiple times in other lists I found online as well. They seem to be the same kind of top 10, give or take a couple. To highlight a few of these common contenders, there's Code Geass, which is an intense mecha military show from 2006. There's Your Lie in April, which is this gut-wrenching music-focused romance show from 2014. There's Death Note, also from 2006, which is the most popular show on website MyAnimeList. And then Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, an action show which is the #1 ranked show on MyAnimeList and generally considered the most critically beloved anime show of all time. That one showed up at #1 a lot. Outside of that, there are some more shows that dedicated and experienced anime fans continue to love, such as Gintama, Steins Gate, Hunter x Hunter, and the previously mentioned Attack on Titan, which is now being called the strongest show of the 2010s overall. This criteria is a bit more straightforward, honestly. There's not a lot of discussion here. These are just the shows that at a glance have the highest scores online. Doesn't necessarily mean they are the best, but it's just what's said online. While you might say other shows are better introductions into anime, and also your preferred genre definitely plays a huge part in what shows you're going to enjoy, many new fans browse these candidates looking for new shows to watch or start, especially if they don't know any other people who watch anime that could give them more accurate recommendations to their personal preferences. So even after that, many longtime fans still consider these shows must-watches, constantly referencing and comparing them to the point that it's rarer to meet a fan that hasn't seen, say, Full Metal Alchemist or Steins Gate. With that in mind, it's hard to say these top contenders aren't the most influential shows. But how do we wrap all this up? How do we compare all these different criteria and try to come to a succinct final decision? So you've made it to the end of this video, listened to me waffle, and honestly you've probably forgotten every show that I've suggested, and I cannot blame you. And here you would think that we would have an answer for the most influential show. Some definitive, clear contender. At the same time, it would be expected and a little cliche for this kind of video to have a "will we ever really know" or "it's just your opinion" kind of ending, even though those things are totally absolutely true and would normally be the ending. So I figured to be different, hit a nice balance, and to open up some more discussion, here are my personal top 3 contenders for the most influential anime of all time. Again, nothing objective, totally subjective, but something a bit more satisfying than, I don't know, just try it for yourself. So my first contender, you have to count Dragon Ball in there somewhere. I mean, it's not an original show from way back, but by now it's a total classic and a veteran of the industry. It's created so many memes, references, cliches, and it's known solidly outside of just anime now. It got literally millions of people into anime before they even knew what anime was, and it's helped to build a really solid foundation for the now cash cow, action-orientated, shonen style of series. Has it aged well? Not really. Is it worth checking out in 2020? Also not really. Is it still influential? Absolutely. I would argue undeniably, but again, that's a matter of opinion, I suppose. So the second possible contender I wanted to put here is between Naruto or One Piece. I put these as a joint option mainly because their impact is similar, but depends on what you're into or where you're from. I could be wrong, but it seems like One Piece has always found slightly more success in other areas of Asia rather than the US or Europe, and Naruto kind of hit the anime fans in those other areas instead. If I, as the researcher, narrator, editor, etc., had to say one of the two, I would give it to Naruto. It's not aged in quite the same regard as One Piece yet, and there are so many problems with the show, particularly the insane amounts of filler episodes. What the fuck, Naruto? But regardless of this, the visuals remain instantly recognizable, the fanbase are so devoted to keeping the franchise alive, it's hard to ignore this show in the contention for most influential series. And with Boruto, its sequel series currently airing, it looks like the Naruto franchise is going to keep influencing new fans for a long time. So the final contender for this list was not as easy to pick. I considered Death Note, I considered Sailor Moon, I considered Pokemon, but in the end, I had to pick the historical, theoretical option and go for Astro Boy. Even if you personally haven't seen it like me, or you don't know the history, it's hard to keep Astro Boy out of the conversation, knowing now where it came from and what it did as a show for Japanese media. I mean, it's literally the Godfather series to all anime. It was the first full-length series, it was the first broadcast in the US, and it completely defined the aesthetic of anime for decades to come. It was the spark that started it all, and with that in mind, it has to at least be considered for the top spot of most influential anime of all time. But at the end of the day, this shouldn't be an open-closed case. This is a great topic for conversation and debate, and one that I would love to promote more online. So comment below your thoughts and opinions, and try not to get too vicious in there, you bunch of nerds. Also, if you watched this whole video and you're not an anime fan, hopefully I've introduced you to the history and variation in the medium, and I've made the big eyes and weird-looking characters a little less terrifying. Thanks for watching, leave a like if you like the video, and check out the channel for more videos. We're going to have more coming out as time progresses, and right now we've already got one you can check back on, so go and check that out.